All right, good morning. Last class period we left off with search and seizure and the right to privacy. So today we're going to move ahead and we're going to begin our section on voluntary athletic associations. Basically, those are those sporting organizations, for example, NAI, NCAA, Amateur Athletic Union, United States Olympic Committee. These are all voluntary sport organizations. Voluntary athletic associations are organizations that individuals and groups voluntarily join and agree to abide by the association's rules and regulations. A voluntary athletic association, as a general rule, courts tend to not want to try to intervene on those rules or make rulings against those associations. They allow those associations to govern themselves, all right? So here are some exceptions to the rule. So like the association might violate common law, maybe a rule or regulation they put in place violates common law. Maybe they exceed the scope of the association's power. The athletic association, maybe the rule breaks one of its own rules, or the rule or regulation is applied in a very arbitrary or capricious fashion. Or maybe the rule or regulation violates someone's constitutional rights. There's a great case in your book called the National Collegiate Athletic Association versus Jocelyn Yeo in your textbook on page 435 and goes through page 438. Great case. Definitely would recommend that you familiarize yourself with that case. It deals with due process of the law, deals with voluntary association, and how conflicts about rules might conflict with one another. Also, this particular case deals with eligibility issues, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. All right. So basically, eligibility issues are all about trying to create an equal level playing field. All right. These eligibility issues are there to maintain the wellness and well-being of the athletes, and all athletic associations that I know of tend to have some form, whether it be club or high school or college, they have some form of eligibility issue or rules that are involved. So high school eligibility rules come into four categories, all right? Basically, they have to have academic standards. Again, remember, playing and participating in sports is a privilege, not a right. Therefore, in order for most high schoolers to play and participate in athletics, they have to have a certain GPA or academic standard. There are also transfer rules that are in place. Then beyond that, there are red shirt rules, which we'll explain a little bit more closely in a moment. And then also longevity rules. Well, let's tackle each one as we go. So academic standards. So for example, in the NAIA, we have three major academic standards. You have to have a minimum of a 2.0 GPA. You have to have an ACT score of 18 or higher, or an equivalent score on an SAT, or you have to be in the top 50% of your class. You have to meet two of those three academic standards. But for high schools, you have grade point average, courses passed. You have to have a certain number of courses completed in a particular year. For example, again, we'll use the NAI as an example since all of that is an NAI institution. The NAI mandates that you have to complete 24 credit hours per year, which is basically 12 hours per semester, to be eligible for the following year. You have to have a daily attendance, an enrollment in a minimum number of credit hours, and maintain a 70 or C average, okay? Or 2.0 average, for example. All right, let's get into transfer rules. Most places have transfer rules. The reason being is, again, they're trying to create an equal playing field. However, there are some states, for example, Michigan has a open school policy, meaning people can school choice. They can choose whatever school they want to get to and go to as long as they can get there. But even then, they still have transfer rules in place because what associations are trying to avoid is stacking or having certain teams much stronger than other teams because they're picking and choosing the best athletes. Redshirting. Redshirting is a way to, again, it's actually a safety precaution to try to protect student athletes. Imagine, for example, allowing high school students to redshirt, or allowing college students to redshirt more than 2 or 3 years. Or right now, redshirt rules typically are available for 1 year only. There are usually standards which redshirts must follow. So one easy reason why somebody might redshirt is because they don't have the academic standing. So they'll redshirt or pass on their first year of a sport competition in order to improve their academic standing. Another reason why somebody might redshirt might be because of a medical hardship. They got hurt or injured, and so they're needing to take time off, and they don't want that year of eligibility to count for them. Really, that's what redshirting is all about. It's trying to preserve a year of eligibility. Most institutions have a certain time periods in which their eligibility must be satisfied in. So again, for example, in the NAI, you have 4 years of eligibility that must be completed within 10 semesters of school. So, and then also the NAI does have a provision that after 4 years of one sport, if someone were to return for their 5th year of school, they could participate in another sport, but they can't participate in the same sport. Those are some examples of redshirting and eligibility rules. Longevity rules, again, so I just explained, like 10 semesters to complete 4 years. Again, the idea is not to have some 36-year-old person who's gone to school all their life competing against a 17-year-old. So it's a way to even out, level the playing field, and keep things fair. One of the reasons why a lot of college football teams will redshirt their freshmen is because there is a difference, typically, in a 19-year-old young man, their size, strength, and body type, compared to a 17-year-old young man playing football. The ability to grow and get stronger over time is a difference. And for the male sports in particular, if a man's body is not at their prime until they're close to 25, it makes sense to try to redshirt and also have longevity rules in place so that we don't have men competing with boys. Intercollegiate regulations, individual eligibility rules for intercollegiate competition begin at the specific institution where the student is enrolled. Most college organizations have some form of clearinghouse. Both the NCAA and NAI have clearinghouses where student athletes begin to get all of their academic and all of these eligibility issues and provisions in place so that they're able to play in the future. Athletes are also regulated by the conference and national collegiate athletic associations. Every conference has maybe some nuanced rules. I know for a while, for example, there are some conferences that don't have transfer within rules, where if you decided to transfer from quit one institution and go to another, you would not be able to participate for a year if you transferred to an institution within the same conference. Not every conference has that, but some conferences do. Okay, we've already talked a little bit about the academic regulations that are involved. We've also talked a little bit about the transfer rules. I know for high schools, for example, transfer rules are designated by where you live. So if you were wanting to go, in most states, if you were wanting to transfer to another school, you would physically have to move to another location in order to participate. And even then, sometimes, depending on why you moved, those schools might have rules in place that would prohibit you to participate in sport, especially if you were moving from semester to semester. So say these regulations are put in place so that someone who might be interested in, say, a female athlete that's interested in volleyball might play volleyball at one school because they have a very good volleyball team, and then transfer in the spring because they also play soccer and want to play soccer at some other school. These transfer rules are put in place to prohibit that kind of activity. All right. All right, and we've already talked a little bit about longevity. Okay, and our next class period, we're going to be talking about conduct issues. Hope you guys have a great day.